There's something you don't see every day.
Well, I reviewed the Friday the 13th, the game, and Predator Hunting Grounds, so it's only obvious that I should really take a look at the game that Illfonic dropped Predator Hunting Grounds for, and is still in the mold of Friday the 13th and Predator, but set in the Ghostbusters universe with Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. But, well, how is it? Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed is another asymmetrical horror, or, well, horror light, where 4 players create their own Ghostbusters and hunt down a player who is, well, playing as a ghost. The ghost needs to haunt the map and the NPCs, while the Ghostbusters need to hunt them down and find the ghost before they can completely actually haunt the map. It's pretty simple and honestly a pretty damn good premise on paper for a Ghostbusters game if you ask me, but, well, the delivery? Now yeah, there is a story element here, and some Ghostbusters do return for some voice acting, which is a nice touch, and it looks like it's set after the events of the Afterlife movie, which actually wasn't too bad of a movie too if you ask me, and it's much better than that attempted reboot spin-off thing.
What has that got to do with it?
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Anyways, yes, there is a story here, and honestly, I didn't find it important, nor did I personally care for it, and with that, I was just skipping and not paying attention to most cutscenes. Story cutscenes in multiplayer games only really work in MMORPGs, and even then, they can be handled poorly. But, well, you're a new recruit Ghostbuster, and you're just setting out to, well, bust ghosts. Now, as the game is asymmetrical, there are 2 ways to play, as the ghost and as the Ghostbusters. Now, we'll start with the Ghostbusters who play in first person, a bit like the Marines in Predator Hunting Grounds. The gameplay loop for the Ghostbusters are pretty straightforward. Find the ghost, trap them. You'll start off with your standard proton pack and the particle thrower and traps. Now, the particle thrower, when fired, basically tries to loop around the ghost and then turns into a bit of a light fishing style game where you can pull them left and right. Now, the trap does exactly what you think it does. It sucks in and it traps ghosts, and you need to pull the ghost over the top of the trap. But it's not a set and forget style of trap. There is a battery system here which can run out if the trap is open for too long. For your buster, you'll need to actively throw it out and actually turn on the trap with the foot pedal and open the trap before you pull the ghost towards it. It's also worth noting too, if you've got a ghost snared up and you try to throw down the trap, you'll immediately drop your particle thrower and you'll throw down the trap, which mostly leads to the ghost just flying and getting away. Which comes into handy for its gameplay mechanic and its loop, having to play as a team, as you can't necessarily capture a ghost by yourself.
It's right here, Ray. It's looking at me.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
I think he can hear you, Ray.
Busters also have the proton pack on their back, which is linked to their particle thrower. Now, each particle thrower has a limited use before it starts to overheat. Now, like you'd expect, you can vent the heat, and it's quicker to vent the heat rather than just letting it overcharge and cool down from there. There's also some small ability-like gadgets that Ghostbusters have access to, like a small grappling gun that makes it easier to reach other areas of the map rather than beelining it straight for the nearest stairs, or a smoke grenade that works that slows the ghost down if they move through it, because ghosts are quite fast and it comes in handy trying to recapture them. Ghostbusters also have the PKE meters, which is a short-range tracking device that can be used to either find and track down the ghost if they're close by, or find a ghost rift. Busters not only have the ghost to hunt down, but they can also hunt down 3 different rifts, or hidden ghost rifts, around the map, which work as respawn points for the ghost. Now, if the Ghostbusters find and destroy all 3 rifts, the ghost is unable and more vulnerable to respawn. Sort of think of it like the rifts are like Horcruxes in Harry Potter. When a ghost is trapped, the ghost can then respawn from the rift and then destroying the rift in the process. So when starting a game as Ghostbusters, you can hunt down the ghost, or you can take out their rifts, so then the ghost is more vulnerable because they can't respawn. But there is a time limit when it comes to playing as a Ghostbuster as well, as the ghost player is haunting the building. The more they haunt the area, the closer they are to winning and frightening NPCs in the building too, which can then barrel and knock you over when they run past in fear. Now, ghosts play in third person just like the Predator in Predator Hunting Grounds, and their objective is quite simple: to haunt the map they're playing in. This can be by spending energy on haunting items such as chairs and plants and signs, and even things like giant prosthetic fish in the aquarium level. They can also attack NPCs, causing them to freak out and perhaps leave the map too, further increasing the haunting level at the top of the screen. When this fills, the map is haunted, but the Ghostbusters will still have a small window of opportunity to try and capture you, and all you need to basically do is run and hide, really. So, in layman's, it's haunt the map until the bar fills at the top, then basically either fight back or run and hide from the Ghostbusters until this timer at the end comes to an end, really.
It's pretty standard, really.
Speaking of which, that's the Ghost's defense when it comes to playing as a ghost. Sure, you can attack the Ghostbusters, but it uses your energy and everything costs energy. So disguising yourself as furniture, basically like prop hunt, is the way to go. Or you can also dash through certain floors and walls which will quickly teleport you to the other side of the map. Ghosts will also have some special unique abilities depending on what ghost you're playing as and what variant or skin you're using for that ghost. For example, the first ghost you unlock is pretty generic, but the last unlocked skin for that ghost is the iconic Slimer. Now some of them are pretty standard across the board abilities, like summoning little minions that will allow you to get some breathing room away from the Ghostbusters, or summoning a giant slime tornado that will deal decent damage to the Ghostbusters if they're in the area of effect. But while the ghosts are, well, dead, that doesn't mean you can't get tired. In the bottom corner of each screen is basically a stamina bar, and sprinting or using a special ability or attacking drains your stamina. Now to quickly recharge this, all you need to do is just not perform any special abilities or not sprint or possess an item and then disguise yourself like prop hunt and stay still for a minute or so. Between rounds you'll be free roaming in the iconic Ghostbusters Firehouse, where you can unlock new outfits and upgrades for your Ghostbuster or for your ghost to play as, but that's really it. There's nothing else with Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. You play as a Ghostbuster and you hunt down the ghost, or you play as a ghost and basically run out the clock and not really get caught. Where at least with other Illfonic games like Friday the 13th, where Jason would catch you, you were at least potentially treated to a fantastic gory kill. If playing as a Marine in Predator Hunting Grounds, if you heard the iconic clicking of a predator or seeing leaves just fall from a tree, it would have you looking up into the tree line with a bit of fear. Where here in Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, after a few hours, you've basically played the entire game. Also, just like every Illfonic game before it, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed is kinda broken. My first game, playing as a ghost, I respawned in between walls. So the Ghostbusters couldn't actually damage or trap me, but if they got close enough to the wall, I could attack them through the wall. And seeing as the only way Ghostbusters can win the game is to basically capture the ghost until they run out of lives, and they couldn't attack me, this was an instant game win for me. Also, look, it may be because Friday the 13th and Predator were gory adult games, and Ghostbusters is more so aimed for a larger audience, but ghosts really can't do anything to the Ghostbusters.
What happened? Are you okay?
He slimed me.
What they can do is tamper with their proton packs on their back, which will temporarily make sure that they can't use their proton beams and all that sort of stuff, but they can also get covered in slime, and that just temporarily knocks them out, and that's it.
You hose him, please.
Hose him.
And I get making a more family friendly but iconic game when it comes to sitting around the Ghostbusters and hunting down a friend, but being able to kill a Ghostbuster is probably a bit too much. But if you're a Ghostbuster and you run away from the group, or you get lost and get slimed to a point where you're knocked out, or, well, slimed really, you can heal yourself and get yourself back up. Now sure, it's faster for other players to find you and clear the slime off you besides you doing it yourself, but at least I found it removes the ability for a player to be removed from the game. I don't know, I feel like there should just be more consequences that a Ghostbuster can be potentially removed, or scared silly that they just leave the round of the game. I don't know, man, this game just felt half-baked, like Phase 4 of the MCU. Or maybe quarter-baked.
This was fun! No!
There are some things though that I think do work for this Ghostbusters game. For starters, graphically, it looks great and it looks like it was inspired by Sea of Thieves, and I think that really works for it. The lighting in the game looks really damn good, and on my monitor it was popping. The sound effects are all there and the sound is really crisp. And of course we have Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson providing their voices for the game. Now yes, they might be for completely useless and pointless and skippable cutscenes, but they are still here. There's also a mechanic where Ghostbusters can calm down NPCs, as when NPCs are frightened they can run and leave the building, increasing the haunting rate on top of the screen, and if they run past a player when they are terrified they will bowl you over and knock you to the ground. But what is the point of calming down an NPC? Yeah, you can calm them down, but it doesn't really do anything besides waste time that can be used to hunt down the ghosts or hunt down and take out their riffs. If by calming down an NPC it reversed the fear meter on top of the screen, then sure, it'd buy players more time, but I just found it completely useless. It's a nice hat touch for Ghostbusters fans, but again, what's the fucking point? And how the idea of an asymmetrical Ghostbusters game sounds really good on paper. Hell, if you told me a few years ago that we would be basically, in some terms, getting a Dead by Daylight Ghostbusters game, I would have been over the moon for it. But this game is temporary fun at best, and it is broken. Not only that, but this game stopped future development and DLC for Predator Hunting Grounds. And yeah, if Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed wasn't a half-assed cash grab while looking good and sounding good as well, then by all means stop working on Predator Hunting Grounds and make and release a game that isn't broken and isn't just completely one-dimensional. Sure, you might be asking, well, Dudi, Friday the 13th and Predator were one-dimensional. What else did you expect for a Ghostbusters game made by the same team? Well, you've got more creative freedom with Ghostbusters than you do with Jason Voorhees and the Predator, at least in my opinion. Sure, we can have the same 4-on-1 standard game mode, but we could have had a Left 4 Dead style system where Ghostbusters players are trying to move through a large map and completing objectives, while Ghost players, or the Ghost player themselves, are trying to stop them. We go from a museum, then into the sewers below, and then we have an ending mission, which is the final stand or boss fight moment for the end of the whole game series, if you will. Having it set up that Ghostbusters can complete minor objectives that Ghost players are trying to stop, and that will make the Ghost at the end of the mission chain weaker, making it easier for the Ghostbusters to win.
Let's suck in the guts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
But if the Ghost happens to stop or delay or fail their objectives for the Ghostbusters, or maybe even become a more powerful Ghost to control at the end of the mission chain.
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
I don't know what I was expecting when I booted up Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. On paper, everything sounded great, and if you're a Ghostbusters fan, then yeah, there's probably a bit more enjoyment here for those of you who aren't Ghostbusters fan. And yeah, there is fun to be had here. You can have a laugh if you're playing with some friends, but if you're playing solo, it's kinda painful. If you're playing as a Ghostbuster, one of two things will happen. You'll either be glued to the players who know exactly what they're doing and the game will be over pretty quick, or as Ghostbusters can't overly catch ghosts by themselves, unless the ghost player is having a sook and refuses to play, you'll be running around and trying to capture the ghost by yourself, while other Ghostbusters are completely lost or clueless. Or in one instance, I found out that the ghost and a Ghostbuster were mates and they were deliberately sabotaging games. Same goes for the ghosts. Some rounds you'll own the Ghostbusters because they're directionless and they're not working together, where other rounds the game is over after a few short minutes. But can I recommend Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I honestly think it's a prime example of a Game Pass game. This game is crossplay, this game looks great, but it's got the shelf life of milk. Is there fun to be had? Yeah, sure, 100%. There is fun to be had. The fun lasts longer if you're playing with friends too, but all this game made me want to do is reinstall, replay, and recover the Ghostbusters video game remastered edition.